Hi, welcome to Board Gems. This is my weekly video series in which I cover older board game gems, and by request, we're doing a mailbag episode. I got a lot of questions people have posed to me, so many that I've split them up into several different episodes. And this episode is on my opinions, which is different from the last episode, which was on preferences. This one's on opinions, and this could get a little ranty. I'm prepared. Are you? So I'm prepared. I got some pop. This glass, I can confirm, contains Diet Pepsi. I neither confirm nor deny that it also contains famous Newfoundland Screech. How many games are too many? Follow up, is this a silly question? It is a little bit of a silly question, if I may say so. It's really however many games you can fit in your home and your partner is willing to accept. Right? If you have room in your home and you have disposable income and you have a very understanding partner, there's no practical upper limit to the number of games you can have. I will take the opportunity to mention, this is kind of an aside, what's popular in the hobby now is there's always, whenever we're talking about like culling a collection or like a board game collection kind of management philosophy, like how do I keep my collection small? And the popular one now is looking at it from a sort of Marie Kondo point of view, deciding whether to keep a game or not, depending on whether it sparks joy. I like that, but it can spark joy for any number of reasons. Don't just judge a game on whether it sparks joy when you play it. Maybe it sparks joy because it triggers a happy memory. Maybe it sparks joy because it's one bad game in a set and you like to have the complete set. Just hold the game. Don't even have to play it. Just hold it, look at it, and decide whether you're happy to have it. And if you are, keep it. What modern game that everyone else loves can you not stand? For me, it's Stonemaier Anything. I love the guy and his company, but his game types and mine just don't gel. You stole mine, actually. I'm 100% in agreement with you. Stonemaier, by all accounts, sounds like an amazing company, and its owner seems like an amazing guy, but I don't care for Stonemaier games at all. They're pretty much exactly the type of game that I don't like. I mean, I do like occasional things. Like I liked Between Two Cities, which was kind of simple and straightforward, and they followed that up with Between Two Castles, which I liked less. I think Viticulture is an amazing game, which unfortunately got sidetracked with the crazy visitor cards. But I gotta tell you, Tapestry, that is a satire of a game, okay? Basically, Tapestry is like a game that was made by somebody who said, what do people like? Let's just give them way too much of that thing. Let's give them useless miniatures and do these crazy combos. And, people love scoring 200-300 points in a game, but still allow them to score 1 point here or there. It's just, to me, it seems like a parody of a game. And I'm sorry, I know people like Tapestry, but I think those people just haven't clued in yet. Because Stonemaier has big, big fans. And every new Stonemaier game comes out, people go nuts over it. And they convince themselves it's a good game. And it's going to take a while before people realize, it's like, what were we thinking? But anyway, you said Stonemaier. I got to pick something else now. So I'm going to pick something that I think I'm going to get some flack about this, if anybody actually watched these videos. Hanabi. I despise Hanabi. Oh, interesting. I didn't realize you could see people unsubscribing in real time. Look, I respect Hanabi. I think it's a very well-designed game, but what I don't like is a cooperative game which severely limits communication. To me, one of the joys of cooperative games is interacting with each other, with the other players, and going, oh, what should we do? So what's your plan? What are you going to do on your turn? Okay, well, I'm going to do this. And I don't like Magic Maze either. That's a speed cooperative game in which you're not allowed to talk. The thing about Hanabi is, and it's a neat idea, is that each group kind of develops its own kind of subtle language, unspoken language. They come up with their own rules and ideas for how things should work. And to them, it's completely obvious that that's the way it should work, and everybody should think that way. And then somebody else entering that group and playing a game comes with their own mindset and their own ideas, and when it doesn't gel, and the game just tanks. So I'm going to tell you a story, and you might think I'm off base on this, but I got to share this story, and this story is the reason why I will, if I get everything that I want. You can't always get what you want, but if you try sometimes. If I have my way, I will never play Hanabi again. So, I was playing Hanabi. We were just starting a game of Hanabi with, it was a 5-player game, so 4 people in my game group. Great people, absolutely amazing, my best friends. And we were just about to start. And so I'm playing Hanabi. Of course, in Hanabi, you hold the cards away from you, but you're allowed to use up clues to give clues for other players. I'm not going to explain how Hanabi works. Look it up. So I'm holding my hand of cards outwards. I don't know what it is, right? And I'm going second. So the player to my right is going first. I'm going second. And I'm looking at everybody else's hands. And so usually at the beginning of Hanabi, my experience is that you usually try to give some clues, right? So people have some idea of what's going on. And I'm looking at everybody's hands. I can't think of any clues to give. Okay, everything's 2s, 3s, and 4s. If there were 5s, I could warn them that's a 5, so they won't discard it. If there's a 1, of course, I can give them the hint so that they can play it, right? Actually, there was only one clue I could think to give, and that was to my left, the player to my left. For him, I could give a clue. So I'm like, I really hope that the start player gives a clue to me so that I can give a clue to him, to the next player, right? So he starts, the start player, and what does he do? He gives a clue to the player to my left, the third player. Now it's my turn. And I don't know what to do. I can't give a clue, and I don't want to waste a clue, but one clue has already been used. So my thinking, and okay, it's probably wrong, I'm not a Hanabi expert, but I'll justify my thinking at the time. What I was thinking was, if I had 1s or 5s, probably that player to my right, the start player, would have given me a clue. But he didn't. He skipped me and went to the next player. So I'm going to guess that there's nothing useless there's nothing useful right now in my hand. So I can probably discard. Now, usually you don't discard at the beginning of the game, but I can't give a useful clue. I'd just be wasting a clue. At least I could get a clue back if I discard. So I took the chance. I took a card from my hand and I discarded it. And it was a 5. And, okay, already we've lost the game. Of course, you can still play for points, but a perfect game is impossible at this point. But it's not just that, it's all the other players, my good friends, asking me, why would I discard a 5? As if I knew it was a 5, right? Why would you do that? You don't discard at the start. You don't know what you have. One thing I really don't like is kind of being criticized about my gameplay, right? Like if I'm just playing alone, like not alone, but if I'm playing for my own benefit and I mess up, I'm the only person that it hurts. But in like partnership games like Tichu or cooperative games in which you can't easily communicate, it becomes a problem because my bad play will affect everyone else. And even though they have different information than I do, they still feel like they can judge me based on the information that I had that they didn't, or that they had and I didn't, right? And it's natural, and I don't blame them, but I just said, okay, guys, I'm going to explain my reasoning, and then I'm going to step away, and you guys can play Hanabi. I'm just going to go on my phone. They're like, oh, no, it's okay. We'll keep playing. They thought maybe I felt bad, and I did feel bad, but I also didn't want to. The game had only just started. So it's like I decided at that moment I was never going to play Hanabi again. And I don't get, I'm not upset at them or anything, right? This is a real thing that happened, and they're still my best friends ever. I blame the game, not them. And you can blame me too. Take a drink here. I have a Carcassonne shot glass. Jealous? Shouldn't be. It's plastic. A shot from a plastic glass. Ugh. Any opinions/interest in some of the heavier games in the hobby? Vital Lacerda, right? The Portuguese designer who's famous for making lots of heavy games. I've enjoyed heavy games in the past. I've played Democker a few times and had fun pretty much every time I've played it. I don't have a personal interest in complex games for a couple of reasons. One is they're usually pretty long, and I don't prefer longer games. I prefer shorter games. But my main problem with the complex games is that there's too many of them. Look, we're in the hobby. We're tasters, right? We go around, we heard about some really awesome sounding new game and we really want to try it, and so we go to a convention and we play it or whatever. I get it. I'm a taster too. But I taste lighter games, light to medium. I don't taste heavy games. Why are you doing that? There's way too many what I'll call uber complex games on the market now. Now, it's not my position to say that that's wrong. That's the publisher's decision, and if people are buying them, who am I to keep people from what they like? But what it seems as though is that publishers are, producing these uber complex games because hobbyists say they want them, and they do want them, and they buy them, but because they're also not very smart about it, because they're tasting. They hear about a really cool and hot, new uber complex game. They see it on Board Game News, or they watch a YouTube video of some YouTuber raving about it, and they're like, oh my god, that sounds amazing, I have to have it. Yeah, okay, so you get it. Maybe you kickstart it, or if it's from a regular publisher, you buy it, and you play it once or twice. Amazing. You have no regrets. And then the next game, right? You hear about the next game, and it sounds maybe not better, maybe not worse, but a little bit different. And now that's piqued your curiosity, and now you have to have that game too. And before you know it, you have a shelf full of uber complex games. Each one takes 90 minutes to 3 hours, and you have more games than you have time to play them. I don't know if hobbyists are self-aware enough to realize that that's kind of dumb. The whole point of an uber complex game is, okay, it's long, and it takes a long time to learn, and it takes a long time to play, but it's so interesting, right? It has all these cool mechanisms, and they're all interlocking, and the strategies are super deep or super broad, or both. So it's worthwhile to dig deep into the game, to play it, ideally with the same group, multiple times, right? Again and again, and every time you play it, and the other players play it too, you discover it on a new level. So there's nothing wrong with liking uber complex games. They're not for me because I'm a taster. And to me, tasting uber complex games is dumb. I'm sorry. I'm going to apologize for that. Maybe I don't know if some of you do that, but I'm pleading with you, okay? Don't just buy any uber complex game out there that sounds interesting. Do your research. If there's a rule book posted, read the rules. Be honest with yourself. Do you think it's a game that you can play, that you can get played? Is the theme and setting interesting? Or do the mechanisms sound interesting? Do the interactions sound interesting? And take a really hard look as to whether you think this is going to be a great game for you. And if it is, great, buy it. and play the heck out of it. Don't even look at other complex games. So you introduce it to your game group, maybe they're also hobbyists. Well, guess what? They're buying games too, and they're also buying uber complex games. And they're going to bring those games, they're going to want to get those played at some time. So I'm telling you, I just think there should be way fewer uber complex games on the market. What I've done is, if a game felt complex and my game group played it and seemed to like it, I would see that they would play it a couple of times before I'm like, okay, this is worthwhile learning. Because it's one thing I hate is going through the effort of learning a complex game, playing for the 2.5 hours or whatever, and just getting the glimpse of its greatness. Okay, I'm totally ready to play again. And I never play it again. Because we've all moved on to something new. Or we play it again in 6 months or 12 months, and I don't remember anything about the last game, so I have to learn it all again. Nope. I know how you feel about modern gaming trends. For example, adding expansions to reprints, player powers, event cards, etc. But are there any other trends that you like or dislike? I wouldn't say I'm against expansions, all right? Look, and I know why they exist, right? So you're doing a reprint of an old game. Well, there's going to be lots of people who already have that game. And even the people who don't already have that game, they might be interested in picking up a used copy of an old game. You have to convince them to buy your new reprint. So you have to buff it up somehow, right? Add in expansions, add in all sorts of other stuff that, to me, make the game worse. But you have to make sort of the definitive edition, right? So even the old players who have the old game look at their old game and go, well, yeah, I love this game and it's pretty great, but it doesn't have that expansion. So maybe it's not as good as it could be. You know, look, I get it. The expansions aren't for me, but I completely understand why they're added, as long as I have the option of not playing with them. Well, there's one trend that I don't understand. It's not that I like or dislike it. People can like and dislike what they want, but I'm not going to give anybody a hard time for liking something or disliking something. But I don't understand this trend for solo games. But I don't understand the appeal of it, really. To me, I enjoy board games because I'm playing with other people, and it's the camaraderie, it's just the togetherness, of being with your family, with your friends, and having a shared experience. And playing a solo game, of course, you don't have that. But the thing is, if you're alone and you're looking for a gaming experience, you have other options. And taking out a board game and setting up all the pieces, especially these complex ones too. There's lots of complex war games too that have solo modes. For a lot of people, if you are alone and you just want to have some fun, there are other options. Most people would say video games at that point. I'm not much of a video gamer, at least not anymore. To me, doing a puzzle is how I solo game. Okay? People would like crosswords or Sudoku or word searches. I don't much care for those. Sudoku's fine. But like a lot of the Japanese puzzles, like Nurikabe and Shikoku and, oh my gosh, just a number of ones. It used to be, well, I guess they still are. They're published by the Japanese magazine Nikoli. I think they invented a lot of them, including Sudoku. I love those puzzles. Masu, I love those puzzles. They're great. And if I'm alone and I have that sort of gaming itch, to me, I'd rather do a puzzle. What's an unpopular board gaming opinion you have that you haven't already discussed? I don't know if I have discussed this on the channel or not, but one thing comes to mind. Some of the most popular games in the hobby have this trend. Terraforming Mars has it. Wingspan has it. Played both of those games. I don't much care for them. They have the game design approach of giving players a massive deck of cards, and each card is crazy different. And the idea is you get these cards and you get to look at them and kind of plan what you want to do with them. So I'll play this card A, then later I will play card B, and then together that'll allow me to do C, right? And the idea is it's fun to come up with all these crazy combos, all right? Maybe it is for some people. I mean, it obviously is. Those two games are quite popular. Games have had it in the past. I mean, card-driven war games do this, but it's a little bit different. I'll explain why. Those games are, being war games, they're more confrontational. But what I'm talking about is a trend that I kind of want to say started more or less with Agricola. And Agricola had two games in one box, right? So it has what they call the family game, which is a perfectly good game just by itself, right? But what sort of elevated it in a lot of people's minds is this massive deck of occupation cards and the minor improvement cards. And I think each card is pretty unique, right? There's this big deck of cards and they all do these different things. So at the beginning of the game, you get this hand of cards and you're trying to kind of do combos with them, right? So this will be good because this will give me wood, and then this one allows me to convert wood into sheep for somehow. How does that work? What they call the German style games, right? In the past, they used to be accused of being multiplayer solitaire. That trend sort of started with like Princess of Florence. The idea is everybody's playing on their own board or their own tableau, and the interaction with the other players is minor. I actually don't mind Princess of Florence's way of doing it. The only real interaction is the auctions, but you can see what's on other people's board, and that can influence you. These games are much more multiplayer solitaire than those ones. Why? Because you're not playing the other players anymore. You're playing your cards. That's where the game is, the cards. It's not I don't care what you do. I don't care what she does. I'm just worried about what I have here. And I play these cards and make this crazy combo, and in the end I score 323 points. And you maybe scored less or more. Okay? You got those points from your combo. But I have nothing to judge my success on. I just got a score, and the score is a direct result of my combos. If I won, did I win because of my better strategy? Or did I win because I just identified better combos, I was better able to spot them, or I just got better cards that worked well together? These are much more multiplayer solitaire, and actually, there might be a direct line connecting to the fact that a lot of newer games, also the solo mode is like really big, right? I get it. Because you're not playing other people anymore, you're playing your hand of cards. That's where the game is. The other players don't even matter. You could replace them with AI, bots, whatever. Right? You're just playing the game in here. Anyway, I hate it. Hate it, hate it, hate it. Every time you get new cards and you're reading new text, and you're trying to think about how they interact and stuff. Even the games like Terraforming Mars that have kind of a shared board with, and there's a little bit of light, take that, right? And, you're competing on certain objectives or something, like, this still basically multiplayer solitaire as far as I'm concerned. I think a lot of hobbyists, too, think these games are less complicated than they are. Because the framework is really simple, right? Oh, we just play a card, do what the card says. It's so simple, right? It's like, yeah, but the interactions are complex. You just moved the complexity, you've offloaded it from the front end where you have to learn a bunch of rules before you start the game, and now it's all that complexity is in the cards. But it slows the game down, you're reading all these cards. Just give me a game that's easy to learn up front and doesn't have like lots of crazy cards, maybe even no cards, that would be fine. And the complexity, if there is complexity, it comes from trying to strategize around other players. That's what I want in a game. That's what makes a great game. What do you feel is the contribution of the publisher to a finished game? For instance, I would have thought game designers were the most important determinant of a game's quality and experience. I mean, sure, of course, the game designer is the most important thing, but developers are really the unsung heroes of the hobby. And I guess that's one of the reasons that I like Hans and Gluck so much, is they have great developers. And they're able to take a game idea and kind of mold it into something that's even better. Much of what I say may be apocryphal, or at least wildly inaccurate. But rumor has it that the Carcassonne that was presented to Hans and Gluck by the designer Klaus-Jürgen Wrede was very different from what you and I know of as Carcassonne, what the finished product is. And a lot of that is development. So Hans and Gluck, for example, a publisher ideally will get the design and they'll work it over, right? They'll test it themselves, they'll make suggestions and work back and forth. But like we kind of romanticize the idea of the single author, right? But behind the scenes, there's always a lot of people whose work goes into the finished product. And now there's more of an appreciation for artists. And I think that the developers do an amazing job, and they're really the unsung heroes of the hobby. I think the publisher is pretty much as important as the designer in terms of the finished product. I mean, let me give you an example, okay? Let's say you love Stefan Feld games. If you hear that a new Stefan Feld game is coming from Alea, you may have a different expectation in your mind of what to expect compared to if it was a Stefan Feld game from a different publisher. Or, of course, an Alea game from a different designer. Both create expectations. You know the type of game Stefan Feld designs. You know the type of game Alea publishes. And when you hear the designer and publisher combination, if it's a well-known, respected publisher, you can get a sense of what the finished product might be like, at least in terms of quality and the sort of experience you may have while playing it. Obviously, without reading the rule book, you don't know, right? But you can get an expectation in your mind about a type of game. But there's a lot of hobbyists who are aware of publishers but don't really have a sense about them. So I'll give you an example. So one time I was at a local convention. It was a convention for, it was a fundraising convention actually, but we were playing board games, and one person had just acquired Witch's Brew. Great game, Witch's Brew. That's a precursor to Broom Service. And they wanted to try it. And I had known the game, so I'm like, yeah, sure, I can teach you, we can play. So we just played a game. And during the game, he made the comment that he loved Rio Grande games. And that always struck me as a little bit of a strange comment. I mean, maybe not so much now, because Rio Grande does have quite a few games that they are the sort of first publisher of, right? They've done Dominion, they've done Race for the Galaxy, and now they've done like a bunch of others. But at the time, Rio Grande was known more for publishing other companies' games, right? So Rio Grande was a publisher of games from Hans and Gluck, for example, and Alea. They didn't make a lot of their own games, right? They were just piggybacking off of another publisher. So what, to me, having a Rio Grande logo on the box was not any indication of the type of game it would be or the development that went into it. That's from the original publisher. I care about who the original publisher was. That's the publisher that did the development work, right? And sure, there are other publishers in other locales that would print or piggyback off that print run and do their own localized versions of the games, but that doesn't mean they have any editorial effect on the game at all. It's the original publisher who did the development work. And so to me, knowing who the original publisher is as much an indication of quality, yes, but also the type of experience to expect. That plays a huge role in the game, not just the game designer, but the publisher as well. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, older games don't stop being good just because newer games come out. Take care.